Have you ever met someone who instantly lights up a room, effortlessly draws people in, and leaves everyone wanting more of their presence? It almost feels like magic, but it isn't. It's a skill, a mindset, and a way of living that anyone can learn. Chapter 1. The Magnetic Mindset. Becoming a people magnet begins not with a trick or a line to repeat, but with a quiet internal recalibration. How you see others determines how they respond to you. The first essential shift is from self-centered evaluation to other-centered curiosity. Most social friction arises because we enter conversations with an agenda: to be seen, to be admired, to defend ourselves, or to sell. A people magnet approaches interaction as a moment of discovery. What lights the other person up? What worries them? What story do they most want to tell? When you orient toward learning about the other person, your posture, tone, and rhythm change. You listen more, interrupt less, and your follow-up questions become genuine. This authentic curiosity is contagious. People crave being heard because it validates them. Someone who offers that validation becomes rare and therefore magnetic. But curiosity alone is not enough. How you express interest matters. Too many well-intentioned listeners immediately pivot to sharing their own similar story. They want to connect by demonstrating equal experience. A magnetic conversationalist resists the urge to one-up and instead mirrors emotions, names the feeling the other person shows, and asks an open-ended question that invites depth rather than surface. This creates a psychological environment where vulnerability is safe and disclosure feels natural. The magnetic mindset also includes emotional regulation. People are drawn to calm, steady presences because they provide psychological safety. If you enter a room anxiously scanning for status, others will feel that energy and either flinch or mirror it. Training your body to breathe, ground, and adopt a relaxed facial expression sends a low-key signal. You can be yourself here. This is not acting. It is practicing a stable baseline that frees you from reactive showmanship and makes room for sincere connection. Another pillar is generosity without calculation. Humans are wired to detect reciprocity, but they are equally responsive to acts of unexpected kindness. Small, thoughtful gestures, remembering a name, following up on a project someone mentioned, offering help without being asked, compound into a reputation for warmth. The magnetic person builds an internal ledger of generosity and draws from it freely because they are motivated by contribution, not by return. Importantly, being magnetic doesn't require constant extroverted performance. Introverted or quiet people can be magnets precisely because they bring depth and undivided attention. The world is saturated with noise and performative charm, so a steady voice who thinks before speaking and speaks from observation will stand out. Finally, the magnetic mindset includes humility, accepting that you do not need to dominate every conversation and that you can learn from anyone. Humble curiosity, steady presence, and authentic generosity form the psychological core of magnetic people. Chapter 2. The Mechanics of Presence. Presence is not mystical. It is a set of skills you can practice and refine. At its surface, presence means being mentally and physically available in the moment. But beneath that lie concrete mechanics, eye contact patterns, vocal pacing, body orientation, and micro-expressions that signal attention. A simple starting rule is the 50-70 rule for eye contact. In conversation, aim to hold eye contact about 50% of the time while speaking and about 70% while listening. This ratio prevents staring yet communicates focus, and when combined with small nods and appropriate facial responses, it creates an experience of being fully engaged. Vocal delivery matters too. People magnetize when they vary, pitched just enough to convey emotion and emphasis without becoming theatrical. Breath control and deliberate pauses give words weight. Pauses are underrated. They let the other person process what you said, signal confidence, and give you time to choose your next sentence rather than reflexively filling silence. Physical orientation is another mechanical lever. Turn your shoulders toward the person, remove barriers like phones and open laptops, and slightly lean in when they make a point. These non-verbal cues register as presence even before a word is heard. Presence also involves listening techniques beyond quiet attention. Reflective listening, paraphrasing what someone has said in your own words, confirms comprehension and deepens trust. Asking a single follow-up that invites elaboration will draw others deeper. Avoid the impulse to redirect to your own stories. In group settings, presence morphs into inclusivity. A magnetic person notices who hasn't spoken and invites them in, creates space for quieter voices, and synthesizes disparate comments into a coherent thread that validates multiple contributors. Presence requires boundaries as well. Being available does not mean being a doormat. Chapter 3: The Language of Attraction. The words you choose and the way you arrange them significantly influence social gravity. People magnets are not just more eloquent, they are more strategic about language. First, they use positive reinforcement and naming, telling someone the specific quality you admire, I really appreciate how precise you are with details, is far more powerful than generic praise. Naming crystallizes behavior and signals that you are paying attention to substance, which fosters trust. Second, magnets master we language, phrases that create shared identity without erasing individuality. Saying we've navigated similar challenges or our team could try this builds affiliation and invites collaboration. Third, they avoid the overuse of disclaimers and self-deprecating qualifiers that undercut authority. A brief humility statement is fine, but constant hedging reduces perceived competence. Conversational framing is another linguistic tool. Instead of asking, "Did you like it?" a magnetic person might ask, "What surprised you most about it?" The latter invites storytelling and emotion, deepening connection. Storytelling itself is a magnetic art. Humans are wired for narratives. A short, personal anecdote that reveals vulnerability or learning, not boastful triumph, draws listeners because it models honesty and gives permission for reciprocity. Chapter 4: Building Trust. Quickly, trust is the currency of magnetism. Without it, charm is hollow. Rapid trust building is possible when you deliberately attend to 3 signals: competence, warmth, and reliability. Competence is demonstrated through relevant knowledge and calm confidence, but it must be balanced with warmth. Technical skill, without human connection, is cold and off-putting. Warmth is conveyed through small acts of attention, remembering a detail from a previous conversation, using a person's preferred name, or aligning your story to their experience. Reliability is the long game condensed into immediate action. Follow through on a promise within a shorter time frame than expected. Deliver a helpful resource right after a conversation, or send a quick thank you note summarizing next steps. These micro behaviors create the impression of trustworthiness because they show attention, competence, and follow through in sequence. Transparency also accelerates trust. People respond well when you admit what you don't know and outline how you will find answers. This honesty beats faux certainty, which often leads to disappointment. Another tactic is to use calibrated vulnerability. Reveal a concise, relevant personal setback and the learning it produced. This humanizes you and signals that you are not hiding failures. Reciprocity norms help too. When you offer value without immediate expectation, you set a relational pattern where people are more likely to respond helpfully later. Yet reciprocity must be authentic. Performative helpfulness is transparent and erodes trust. Chapter 5: The Art of Influence. Without manipulation, influence and magnetism are siblings, but the ethical line between inspiration and manipulation matters. People magnets influence by aligning interests, creating win-win frames, and making desirable choices obvious rather than coercive. The first technique is to surface underlying motivations. Ask questions that reveal what the other person values, and then show how your proposal advances that value. People are more receptive when they see a path that honors their priorities. Second, magnets use choice architecture, present options in a way that highlights the most constructive path while preserving autonomy. For example, offer two well-crafted alternatives rather than a binary yes-no. This gives agency and nudges toward the option you believe is best without removing freedom. Third, effective influence leverages small agreements. Start with low-risk asks that, once accepted, build momentum for larger commitments. This principle, small wins, creates a psychological pattern of consistency that people like to maintain. Story-based persuasion is powerful because narratives allow people to simulate outcomes without feeling pressured. Tell a brief case where someone in a similar position benefited and the listener can imagine themselves in that success. Importantly, magnets avoid pressure tactics, deadlines, guilt, or inflated stakes because these undermine long-term trust. Influence that erodes autonomy will produce compliance but not loyalty. Chapter 6. Reading the Room and Social Calibration. A core skill of magnetic people is the ability to read the room, quickly sensing mood, energy, and the unspoken dynamics that shape how a conversation will land. This is not trickery. It is attentive perception and flexible response. Start with scanning 3 dimensions. Emotional tone. Is the group upbeat, subdued, anxious? Relational temperature. Are people familiar, guarded, competitive? And conversational tempo. Is talk fast and overlapping or slow and reflective? Once you have that map, calibrate your entry. If the mood is tense, lower your volume and slow your pace. If it's buoyant, match the energy while still offering a steady center. Micro-adjustments matter. Soften your facial expressions when someone looks vulnerable. Increase short affirmations when people are excited. Pause more when ideas are complex. Calibrated questions are your tool for testing hypotheses. Does that resonate? Or, what would you add? Invite correction and prevent you from bulldozing with assumptions. Another element is cultural and contextual sensitivity. What works in an intimate team huddle may feel performative in a formal boardroom. Magnetic people study patterns of acceptable humor, physical space norms, and conversational rituals in that environment and adapt without losing authenticity. Importantly, calibration requires humility. Assume you might be wrong about the vibe and give others an easy out to correct you. The social equivalent of "I might be mistaken" is powerful. It reduces friction and models openness. Finally, practice rapid feedback loops. After speaking, observe micro signals, eye contact length, posture shifts, the energy of follow-up questions, and revise your approach. Reading the room becomes a habit that transforms guesswork into conversational precision. The result is that people feel understood before you say anything brilliant, and being understood is the single best predictor of magnetic influence. Chapter 7. Building rapport. Fast, patterns and rituals. Rapid rapport is less magic than method. People magnets use patterns and small rituals that create trust and psychological ease in minutes rather than months. One reliable pattern is the threefold connection. Find one factual commonality, same city, similar role, one emotional connection, shared, frustration or excitement, and one forward-looking tie, mutual interest or goal. This triad moves a conversation from surface to substance quickly and gives both parties 3 reasons to stay engaged. Rituals amplify this effect, a brief opening script that signals warmth, a genuine compliment or observation, a micro-story that reveals vulnerability, and a closing promise, an offer to share a resource or a next step, convert casual interactions into nascent relationships. Mirroring, adopting similar speech tempo, posture, or idioms builds unconscious affinity. But the key is authenticity. Mimicry must feel natural, not pasted on. Another tactic is to name small things others value aloud, observing an accessory, asking about a book they carry, or recalling a detail from a previous meeting. These tiny memory acts signal attention and make people feel visible. For professionals, rituals can be standardized: a 2-sentence personal intro, a 1-question deep dive, and a promise to follow up with something useful. This structure short-circuits awkwardness and produces consistent rapport. Finally, close the loop. When people leave a conversation having received something useful, even a 1-line insight, they remember you. Building rapport fast is therefore an engineered sequence of attention, connection, and value, repeated until it becomes natural. Chapter 8. Emotional Intelligence in Practice. Emotional intelligence is not a soft luxury, it's an applied competence that determines how well your interactions convert into relationships. The most magnetic people translate EQ into concrete moves. They label emotions aloud to diffuse intensity. You seem frustrated, tell me what's hardest, right now. They validate without fixing. That makes total sense given the pressure you're under. And they use boundaries compassionately. I can't take that on today, but I can help you find X. These moves do 3 things. They reduce the listener's emotional load, they demonstrate empathy, and they protect your capacity. A central EQ practice is affect regulation. When another person's distress rises, your ability to remain steady is not suppression, but leadership. Techniques like paced breathing, micro pauses before responding, and softening vocal tone buy you bandwidth to respond with care instead of reactivity. Another practical EQ skill is curiosity, followed by constraint. Ask clarifying questions to map the emotional landscape. Then frame options rather than offering blanket advice. For instance, after someone vents, offer 2 small next steps they can choose from. This restores agency. Finally, cultivate emotional bookkeeping. Track how people reacted to your interventions over time and adjust. If humor landed poorly before, shift to seriousness. If direct challenge motivated someone last quarter, don't assume it still will. Chapter 9. The magnetic first impression, more than looks. First impressions are powerful because they set a predictive narrative for future interactions, but they are not predetermined by glamour or costume. The most magnetic first impressions combine 3 accessible elements: composure, clarity, and kindness. Composure is the calm competence that signals you are not thrown off by circumstance. Show it with steady posture, even breath, and clear eye contact. Clarity is the ability to state what you do or why you're there in one crisp sentence. Avoid jargon and make your intention obvious. Kindness is the tiny, uncostly acts that announce you are safe to approach. A warm smile, a genuine nod, or immediate attention to the other person's opening line. These 3 create a predictive story that others will use to decide whether to engage. Another practical tip: prepare a 2-line magnet pitch that is not a sales script, but a human summary, who you are and what you care about, delivered with curiosity toward the listener. Avoid the temptation to dominate early conversation. Use your opening to invite someone else's perspective. Finally, manage artifacts: the way you enter a room, how you hang a coat, where you sit, sends cues. Chapter 10. The quiet power of listening and reflective questions. Listening is a skill that many think they do, but few practice well. Magnetic listeners balance attention with architecture. They listen to understand, then ask one reflective question that opens deeper meaning. Reflective questions are distinct from informational queries. Instead of, "What did you do?" ask, "What did that experience teach you?" Or, "How did that change the way you see things?" These questions shift the conversation from reporting to meaning-making, and people instinctively appreciate the chance to integrate their experience. Another technique is the one-line mirror. Summarize the essence of what someone said in one concise sentence, then invite correction. This demonstrates you are tracking nuance without over-interpreting. Silence is also a vital listening tool. Allow comfortable pauses after people speak. This encourages them to continue and often yields the richest thoughts. Chapter 11. Using humor, warmth, and levity. Appropriately. Humor is a magnetic amplifier when used with sensitivity. The best social humor combines timing, self-awareness, and inclusion, rather than sarcasm or punch-down jokes. Start with light self-effacement or situational observations that invite shared amusement rather than targeting individuals. Warmth and levity lower defenses. A well-timed laugh makes vulnerability easier and signals that the social setting is safe. But calibration matters. Read the stakes first. In contexts with high vulnerability or grief, humor may feel dismissive. In brainstorming sessions or networking events, it can catalyze rapport. Chapter 12. Conflict, Grace, and Repairing Relationships. Magnetism does not mean avoiding conflict, it means handling it with grace so relationships survive and deepen. The first rule of magnetic conflict is de-escalation. When heat rises, lower stakes by acknowledging emotion. "I hear you, this is frustrating," and pausing before making solutions. Use the interest-based frame. Shift from positions, "You must change X," to interests. "What outcome do we both want?" which opens collaborative problem-solving. Another practical device is the micro-repair. When a slip occurs, a brusque comment, interrupted talk, name it briefly and apologize if needed. "I cut you off, that wasn't fair." Then invite continuation. Repairs are micro-investments that signal respect and reduce lingering resentment. Chapter 13. Sustaining. Magnetism, daily habits, and long-term practices. Magnetism is renewed by routines more than by rare performances. Daily habits that sustain your social vitality include sleep and recovery rituals that preserve emotional bandwidth, micro-reflection at day's end to note one meaningful interaction, and scheduled outreach to maintain networks, a 15-minute calendar slot for reconnecting per week. Practice gratitude publicly, express appreciation for one person each week in writing, and your social capital compounds. Another long-term practice is continuous curiosity. Keep a reading list across domains and share one intriguing idea monthly with your circle. Intellectual generosity attracts reciprocal curiosity. Invest in relationship halos, small annual rituals, birthday notes, yearly coffee catch-ups that keep ties warm with low friction. Also, protect your boundary energy. Know when to say no to invitations that deplete rather than enlarge you. Chapter 14. Designing your networking ecosystem. Magnetism at scale requires design, not chance. Instead of hoping to meet the right people, magnetic individuals build a networking ecosystem tuned to their goals and values. This begins with deliberate topology. Map the circles you need: peers who push performance, mentors who offer perspective, sponsors who open doors, and learners you can mentor in return. Each circle has different dynamics and requires different investments. Peers need reciprocity and shared ritual. Mentors need concise progress updates and specific asks. Sponsors require visibility and demonstrated impact. Mentees need time and scaffolded guidance. Next, convert random contacts into relational nodes by creating low-friction repeat interactions. A monthly mastermind call, a quarterly walk and talk, or a brief shared project that produces a small win. These rituals turn acquaintances into collaborators. Use systems to maintain contact, simple CRM-style notes, calendar reminders for check-ins, and templated messages that feel personal because they reference a specific past interaction. Quality matters more than quantity. Prune the network of draining ties and focus bandwidth on those that generate mutual energy. Also diversify across domains. Cross-pollination between unrelated fields produces serendipity and resilience. Finally, think of networking as a public utility. What value can you supply that makes the whole ecosystem healthier? Share introductions, curate resources, and spotlight others' work. When you build infrastructure that benefits many, your magnetism shifts from personal charisma to network gravity, attracting opportunities without constant pitching. Chapter 15. Authenticity, Boundaries, and Personal Brand. Authenticity is not simply being yourself. It's curating the truest, highest performing version of yourself and communicating that consistently. Magnetic people practice congruence. Their words, actions, and online presence line up with their values and competencies. This creates credibility and reduces cognitive load for others. They know what to expect. Crafting authenticity also means setting boundaries that preserve energy and credibility. Saying no with a short rationale protects your capacity and signals priorities. It prevents the resentment and flakiness that erode trust. Your personal brand is the story you tell through small, repeated actions, the topics you post about, the help you offer publicly, the quality of follow-through. Be intentional about the signals you emit. Use platforms that fit your style, long-form essays if you love nuance, podcasts if you enjoy conversation, concise videos if you prefer punch. Maintain a rhythm that audiences can rely on and a style that feels human rather than produced. Authenticity invites vulnerability, but choose which vulnerabilities to share strategically. Those that reveal lessons learned and invite others into the same work, rather than those that demand reassurance. Over time, consistent, bounded authenticity becomes an attractor for people who share your values and ambitions. Chapter 16. The Magnetism of Leadership. Influence that lasts. Leadership. Magnetism is less about charisma and more about enlarging others. Leaders who magnetize create conditions where people do their best work because they feel seen, challenged, and safe. This requires 3 durable practices: visioning, scaffolding, and advocacy. Visioning is the ability to tell a clear, compelling story about what success looks like and then translating that story into proximate milestones. Scaffolding is equipping people with the tools, feedback, and autonomy to climb toward the vision. It is the opposite of micromanagement. Advocacy is using your influence to remove barriers, secure resources, and amplify others' achievements. Magnetic leaders also practice distributive power, cultivating second-line leaders so that influence is not concentrated in one person but radiates through the team. Psychological safety is non-negotiable. People must be able to fail fast without identity damage. Finally, leaders who sustain magnetism don't confuse visibility with value. They measure impact by others' growth, not by applause. This civic orientation, success defined by who you help succeed, creates a legacy of attraction that outlives any single project. Chapter 17. Digital Magnetism and Attention Economy. Mastery. In the digital age, magnetism extends into pixels. Online presence is not vanity. It is a persistent locus of first impressions. To be magnetic online, prioritize signal over noise. Create content that answers a real question, evokes a real emotion, or serves a real need. Packaging matters, but value is the enduring currency. Be consistent in cadence and format so algorithms and audiences learn when and why to expect you. Use platform-specific strengths, threads for nuance, shorts for hooks, long-form for depth, and repurpose smartly rather than creating from scratch each time. Engage like a human, reply to meaningful comments, spotlight followers' contributions, and use DMs sparingly but warmly to deepen promising connections. Treat your digital channels as gardens, prune dead content, water high-potential posts with follow-ups, and transplant ideas into new formats. Also respect attention boundaries. Don't overpost low-value noise that trains your audience to ignore you. Finally, remember that online magnetism translates to offline opportunity only when you design pathways, clear calls to action, accessible scheduling, and ways to convert a passive follower into an engaged collaborator or event attendee. Chapter 18. Mentoring, Sponsoring, and the Gift Economy. A signature trait of people magnets is generous leverage. They invest time and reputation to lift others. Mentoring and sponsoring are different but complementary acts. Mentoring focuses on skill and wisdom transfer, guidance, feedback, and psychological support, whereas sponsoring includes active advocacy, recommending someone for roles, putting them on stages, or directly opening doors. Both multiply social capital far beyond any single relationship. Make mentoring scalable with small formats, office hours, cohort-based workshops, or recorded micro-lessons that mentees can replay. For sponsoring, cultivate credibility first. People risk their reputation by endorsing others, so demonstrate consistent judgment and integrity. The gift economy of generosity pays dividends. People you helped will return favors, refer opportunities, and protect your reputation. But generosity must be strategic and sustainable. Avoid burnout by setting clear scopes for help and cultivating a pipeline of mentees who can also support each other. Finally, public acts of uplift, spotlighting achievements, sharing learning publicly, create cultural norms of reciprocity. A magnet who invests in others builds a reputation not only for being helpful, but for shaping an ecosystem where people want to belong. Chapter 19. Measuring. Your social ROI and iterating. Magnetism is not mystical. It can be measured, tested, and iterated. Define simple metrics for social return on investment. The number of meaningful conversations per month, response rates to outreach, the percentage of collaborations that lead to repeat work, or the growth of a core advisory network. Use lightweight systems to capture data. One-line CRM notes, a monthly reflection document, or a short survey after meetings to rate usefulness. Experiment with different rituals and measure outcomes. Does a weekly newsletter lead to more meeting requests than a monthly podcast? Do coffee chats produce more referrals than webinar Q&A sessions? Treat these as A/B tests and iterate quickly. Solicit feedback explicitly. Ask trusted connectors what you could do more of or less of. Be willing to kill initiatives that drain energy even if they once felt promising. Over time, this analytical approach converts social effort from scattershot hustle into a disciplined growth engine. The payoff is focus. You amplify activities with high marginal returns and reduce the noise, increasing both reach and depth of relationships. Chapter 20. The long arc of influence, legacy and stewardship. True magnetism is generational. It is the pattern of behavior that not only attracts people today, but seeds environments that attract people for years. Stewardship is the mindset that your influence is borrowed and that you are obligated to leave systems better than you found them. This means investing in institutions, documentation, and practices that outlast any single relationship. Training manuals, mentorship ladders, public repositories of knowledge, and governance norms that reward growth. Legacy-minded magnets also practice ethical influence, using power to expand opportunity rather than extract it, and they guard reputation fiercely by acting with consistency and generosity. Finally, stewardship includes succession planning. Who will carry forward the culture you built? Who will receive your network and your practices? By thinking in decades rather than weeks, you convert personal magnetism into an ecosystem of attraction that sustains itself. The long arc of influence is not measured by viral moments, but by the lives changed, the leaders grown, and the institutions strengthened over time. Conclusion. Magnetism is a practice more than a trait. It is built from daily attention, generous habits, and deliberate systems that amplify presence and trust. Start small, keep consistent, and measure what matters. Over time, the people you attract will reflect the person you became.